already going off.
No, you're good, man.
Started.
We all set?
Everything's recording. You're looking good.
Bingo.
What episode is this?
Do I look good? Do I look great?
Yeah.
Pull your shirt
right.
out.
Big dog.
Do I
Yeah.
look chubby?
All right, you guys ready?
I need to talk to you guys about aesthetics because
Yeah.
I'm not fat. I'm actually pretty lean, but I've got like.
This is on the podcast, by the way, so we're going.
we're
We're live.
going.
Making sure I get photos.
Okay.
Yeah.
'Cause, like, I'll catch myself and it looks like I got a gut.
Right? No.
And I could show you. I don't have a full six pack. I got a tiny little bit
Yeah.
of fat, but she's always like, God, you look fat.
Look at her.
I do not
You're always like, what are you gonna do with that big fat belly?
That is not the truth.
I
You
think
see
that
a picture of
the truth
yourself
is
and
coming out, guys.
you go, oh my God, I look like I have a belly. And I was like, that's how you've trained your abdominal wall.
I mean, because I've had back injuries in the
Yeah.
past, right? So I've trained myself to build intra-abdominal pressure to protect my back when I'm squatting and deadlifting.
Right.
And then I'll be damned. Like I was working with a patient this morning. I look over at the mirror. I'm like, fat fuck. Like I just got this belly.
Well, she is the dietitian, okay? So you need to help him.
he
Help him.
eats
You have him in
healthier than
your
anyone
house.
I know. So
crazy.
yeah.
We could definitely get into that. But guys, this is episode 12. We're really excited to have you guys on. You know, way to start it off. This is Dr. Rob Jones and his wife Shannon. She's a dietitian. Really, this is my first question. What do you do?
Okay, long, involved answer because I'm not just your regular run-of-the-mill chiropractor.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
quick background is I got an undergrad. I'm from Toronto, Canada. Got an undergrad at York University in exercise physiology with a minor in sport therapy because I was an athlete when I was growing up. I played hockey, baseball, tennis, you name it, I played it. And my chiropractor was always who put me back together when I was injured. So
Right.
I thought all chiros were like this guy. Like he would adjust me, he'd do soft tissue work, he would give me rehab to do, and I'd always get better. And I was like, what a great dovetail to what I want to do. So I ended up going to chiropractic school in Toronto, and that's where I met Shannon. I came down to Kansas City to play in a tennis tournament, and she picked me up in a bar, and the rest of this history.
Oh, yeah? I'm going to have to hear that story.
No, but I basically tailored my education to be rehab and sport minded because adjustments work.
Absolutely.
But what happens when the patient doesn't need an adjustment? Like one of the biggest problems I see in my profession is people don't know when to not adjust. You got somebody who's got an unstable lower back. If you adjust that, you're just going to make them worse because it's a loose ligament problem, right? So you don't want to loosen that up even more. You want to tighten it up. So yeah. So what do? I do adjustments if they're necessary. I'm certified in active release therapy, which is a soft tissue technique that's great for breaking up adhesion and scar tissue. And then I've got tons of extra training in sports and rehab. I spent 20 years. We lived in Lawrence, Kansas, where the University of Kansas is, kind of like Gainesville, KU was there. I was with the football team, with the rest of athletics a couple days a week for years and years, and I was with in my clinic the rest of the time. So I've got a really broad background in sports and rehab, basically. So
perfect.
Chiro, sports, I even do strength and conditioning stuff, and I'm kind of one of those jack of all trades when it comes to body stuff. So
And you're locally out of Sarasota, too, which people don't know that. So
there you go.
Which
Yeah.
we met at the Sarasota Speaks party. I'm glad we met there. And we had a great conversation.
Yeah.
And so one of the big things that I want to hit, we'll just get on a next subject, is what things do you see bodybuilders doing that they should not be doing?
So, broad question. And I don't want to upset the apple cart by any means because I think everybody should be bodybuilding.
Right.
Period.
Agreed.
The end. Because, and this is Shannon's side of things, but all this data now is showing that the more muscle you have as you age, the better you age and the better you get over everything. Gabrielle Lyon, that doctor I think she's out of New York, she's been beating this drum for the last couple of years. I first, one of my inspirations to go to chiropractic school wasn't just my own chiropractor, but it was Franco Columbo.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
If you look back online, go onto YouTube and look at the early days of strongman competitions, even though he was a bodybuilder winning Mr. Universe when Arnold didn't win it, he competed in strongman. He was only
he was
only like
very
5'4", 5'5", but he was an
yeah.
absolute powerhouse. But he was a chiropractor at the time.
Wow.
And when I was in undergrad, I remember one of the girls I used to sit with in one of these lectures, she was like, did you watch the strongman competition last night? And it was a rerun from whenever, because we were in the 90s in school. And it was Franco Columbo. He was carrying a fridge on his back, and he inverted his ankle and rolled it. And they were interviewing him. They said, so what do you think about your leg fracture? He goes, I am chiropractor myself. This is not fracture. I have ligament sprain. I get stronger, it'd be better. And that's some more Russian than Italian. But, but anyway,
You did pretty good.
But that was me going, oh, I get it. The stronger you are, the better you're going to be. And that's what really, because I was always lifting weights as a teenager for sports and to look better with my shirt off and all that. But that's when I went, I got to get my patients stronger, because if I just adjust them, it's not going to last. They're going to feel good for an hour or until they get in their car and get back out and they're going to go, I need to go back next day.
Right.
And it's maybe not the best business plan in the world, but I don't like to see people 30 times. If you come in with a shoulder injury and I'm doing my job right, you got to come in 4, 5, 6 times, and I help you get on the right path. You do the rehab, it heals over time, you're good to go, and it's gone. It's not, I need to see you for your 77th visit next month. It's not my shtick.
You're trying to improve, not keep them coming back.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, again, I'm not trying to kind of burn and talk down to the average chiro, because they do help a lot of people, but I don't like being part of the stigma of, they only do so much because they want you to come back. I mean, I don't think they do. It's dishonesty, and I mean, we all take a Hippocratic oath, right? But
So you know,
I didn't answer your question. I'm sorry.
no, it's
but
okay.
but the biggest thing I think that I see bodybuilders doing is what Ronnie Coleman did.
Yeah.
Is lifting as much, because you're Superman when you're on as much gear as you're on, and you completely blow out your body. Like, if you watch him walk now, he's got no function in his legs.
well, you really can't walk almost.
Well, he can't walk because he's basically paraplegic.
Right.
To an extent, right? This is a bodybuilder. You've seen pictures of him. He was from
Ronnie
Fort
Coleman.
Worth. Ronnie Coleman won Mr. Universe in the late
Mr. Olympia,
or Mr.
Mr.
Olympia.
Olympia 8 times in a row.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Best bodybuilder of all time.
But trained like an animal, like was squatting 800 pounds for reps, and he lifted like, because he was a power lifter first, right?
Yeah,
And then he
he
took
was
that
really
into bodybuilding. But he's the exact example. You have to train not just for size and look and aesthetic. You got to train for function, because this is the only body you got. And if you ignore some subtleties, then you're ignoring the latter third of your life, or for him, the latter half of his life.
So basically what you're saying is you should work up to pain, not through it.
100%, yeah, or work around it.
Right,
I mean, I've got 2 herniated discs in my back. I'm 53, or almost 53, like we talked about. I've got a partially torn labrum in my left shoulder from snowboarding in my 20s. I never did anything easy. It was always 100% balls to the wall. I got 2 herniated discs in my back. I've torn my meniscus, but I still train. I still deadlift. You know, I don't go super heavy, but I still deadlift up to 3 plates and for a couple of reps here and there. But I've got to prep my body for it. I got to make sure my hips are mobile. And if something doesn't feel right, I'm done. I won't put the extra plate on. And I think that's the mentality that I think, and again, I'm not in the bodybuilding world like you guys are, but I think we have to recognize when the body gives you a signal that you got to take that signal and say, okay, what can we do that's efficient today to still make a gain and make an improvement, but without tearing down the system, so we can't train hard that next day and the rest of the week, basically.
Exactly.
So,
What you're telling me is exactly what I tell my clients. Like, when they're like, "Oh, my shoulder hurts," okay, well, just stop then. Stop pushing through pain. Exactly what Dustin said. A lot of people, especially us bodybuilders, we're getting prep, right? We know we got 12 weeks to hit the stage. We can't miss one chest workout. We can't miss one back workout.
Right.
So the problem is people push through the pain, and they don't know when to stop. They don't know when to, okay, instead of doing deadlifts, let's do like maybe some light hyperextensions, or let's do like some seated stuff where my chest is, being supportive. And instead they're going to fucking T-bar row 8 plates. Like, what are we doing? Like, this is why you guys are going to have injuries. You're going to continue to have injuries in your entire career. So, so that's a big thing that I see, and that's a big thing I tell my clients.
And I think also and it's gotten better over the last few years, but there has to be mobility worked in. Almost, I don't want to say you have to have a designated mobility day, but what I try to do myself is like Monday. Everybody says Monday's International Chest Day, right?
It's just, don't mess with my Mondays.
Yeah.
Okay?
So
don't be messing with my Mondays.
I squat every Monday because that's just when I'm freshest from the weekend, and it's just because I'm older. I can't squat later in the week because I tend to be a little bit stiffer, and I mean, with patients, my back is a little dicey, so I always squat on Monday. But what I'll try to do, it's kind of funny. She'll be like back in the bathroom getting ready for bed, and I'll be on the foam roller, like at the foot of her bed, going, "Oh," and she'd be like, "You okay in there?" But I try to do ameliorative stuff the same day that I do whatever work I do. Okay, so like Saturday, I did chest, and then later in that day, I did some mobility work for my shoulders and chest. I give my body some time to kind of, get the proper nutrition in and do what I need to do to recover that day. And then maybe 8-10 hours later, maybe not that long, 6 hours later, I'll go through some stretching before I go to bed. Right. I'm big on mobility and stretching before you go to bed, because a lot of times the stiffness you wake up in the morning with is not. I've had patients for years say, "Oh, I slept wrong and my neck is kinked." unless you slept and somebody was wrestling you, it's most likely, or you had some rough sex or something, but it's
crazy.
most likely what you did the day prior that you didn't fix prior to going to bed, and then it just snowballed into the next morning. So.
Do you think stretching is more beneficial after, like you're saying, 6 hours, something like that, to where your body's recovered? Or how do you feel about stretching during your workout, in between sets?
Yeah, I mean, I'm more of an activation guy between sets because I was always taught, now here we go back to undergrad, which was like almost 30 years ago. Stretching is how we warmed up, right? But now we're seeing through the data that it's a neuromuscular depressant. So if you,
it's not necessary.
It's not really necessary. We want central nervous system and peripheral nervous system activation. So what my biggest thing is when I'm training people or training myself or working with an athlete or helping Shannon get through some pain and we're working out together, which she loves working out with me, right?
That's your favorite.
It's like,
Yeah.
I'll pass.
Is neuromuscular activation of stabilizers. That's my biggest thing. If somebody, I always kind of look upstream, downstream. Like, let's say you're doing a squat day and you're like, oh, my glute is locking up on me, or my hamstring's locking up on me. A lot of times it's not a need for a stretch. You've got overactivation of said tissue. So you need to do something to counteract that. So whether it's, go upstream and maybe turn on a glute medius, or make sure your pelvis is sitting right, something like that. That to me is more low-hanging fruit. That's more effective than going, oh man, I just tweaked my shoulder, I better stretch it. Well, you maybe tweaked your shoulder on bench because your external rotators weren't keeping your shoulder in a good position to keep you in scapular plane to press from. So that's kind of that's the way I go for it. Okay. And so so it's more central nervous system activated, and that's really what I learned when I was in chiro school, because I followed a lot of like Stuart McGill stuff. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a big back guy out of Canada. Craig Liebenson is a guy, he's out of California, but he studied with the Prague school physios. You ever heard of upper cross, lower cross syndrome?
Yes.
Okay, that was invented by a guy named Vladimir Janda, who was out of the Czech Republic. And he came, it's basically just posture. We all see it, right? Yeah, hunch posture. So
Everybody sit up now.
yeah, everybody sit up now, exactly. Head forward, you're in a hyperlordotic cervical position. Okay, so that means your anterior stabilizers are shut off, your posterior erectors are turned on, your traps are shut off because they're in lengthened position, and then you're internally rotated through your pecs. It's a really weak position, because we know if you want to lift and have a good bench, you want to be back through here.
Shoulder.
Yeah, exactly. So you tweak that shoulder. Maybe we don't need to stretch the pec. Maybe we need to take a band and do some openers to externally rotate the humeri, get the traps turned on. So now we're in a better position. So that's kind of the way I go. To answer your question about intra-workout stretching, I'm never going to give you a short answer. You see her laughing?
I'm wondering when they're going to catch
Well,
up.
it's hard because, we had this guy Drew on the podcast. Shout out to him, but he's almost too smart. And when you get on a small topic, we want minute answers, and there's not really a minute answer on any topic. And we could talk about that one topic for 10 years, honestly, like an entire day on the one topic. But you're doing good, man. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Trust me, it's fine. There's a lot of information that people want to know. So again, just keep going, keep going, man. We got it.
Yeah. So honestly, the stretching side of it is, to me, it's re-lengthen, shorten tissues, really, because the collagen matrix, we want to make sure it's healthy, especially in people like me who are, over 40, the collagen matrix of the tendon is going to break down a little bit as you age, and you have to kind of train it in a lengthened position. And actually, I love the fact that there's a lot of data now coming out on hypertrophy training at, starting at end range, like getting into a deep stretch with lighter weight to get activation. Because to me, that's a great position, because you're teaching a tendon to load up in a vulnerable position. So it gets stronger in that position, basically. So.
Yeah, so if you don't know, I actually tore my chest off my bone, and I had it surgically attached back and everything. Yeah. And I was with SRQ Rehab. He gave me a free session. Shout out to him. Really nice guy. But he was telling me, he's like, yeah, you're strong here, man, but you need to take 5 pounds and just work on that last little bit of stretch. Yeah. And I've been doing that, man. And it's been helping a lot. Because I tell him, dude, I have pain right there, right? Yeah. He's like, the reason why I have pain is because you need to start doing it. You're only doing strong here. So I think that's a big thing that people, but I think the biggest thing that me personally, I want to know about this, which I've done my own research and I know what works for me, but it's L5-S1 injuries, right? I feel like that's probably the most common back injury that I see.
100%.
It's all everywhere, man. People squat, they'll deadlift properly, boom, the pops out, you get a herniation or a bulge, technically mine's bulge. And I've learned to deal with that. What's your advice to people that have lower back problems?
Well, what a great segue into one of my.
I was waiting for these.
One of my first gifts to the Warrior Podcast, Dr. Rob Jones,
Oh,
Protect Your
beautiful,
Back
man.
101.
Oh,
so
perfect, man. There we go.
you guys can share that.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful.
Yeah, that's just honestly, I wrote that back in 2018, and it was honestly an answer to the crappy fitness advice that people were getting in the region that we lived in before. There was a lot of people training a lot of people. We lived in a great community where there was a lot of fitness, but people did not understand back mechanics. And back mechanics are very simple. And this is Stuart McGill's work, Bogduck's work. If you have a tight thoracic spine and tight hips, and you squat and you are looking for depth, you will butt wink at some point.
Absolutely.
Okay, 100%. And the first, and Shannon could even explain this because I mean, she and I both have had back injuries, and I don't know what yours was from over time. Probably all the dancing you did. Yeah. But mine was from weightlifting, hockey, snowboarding. But when you go to squat down, the vast majority of people don't have 120 degrees of hip flexion, okay, which is flexing your hips this way without the pelvis moving, okay? So when you have a strength coach say, and we used to see this in kids a lot coming out of high school into the D1 level, where they were just get in the room, everybody shouts, 400, let's go, you got this, go Matt, yeah, and it's awesome, it's team building and all that, but you're taking away valuable reps from the ligaments because it's literally a ligament that wraps around every disc, and you never want to loosen a ligament. Your ligament is your stability mechanism, right? So the more you butt wink over time, you're literally taking that disc and stretching it over and over again, and then it loses its elastic barrier potential, and then the disc starts to move out. So when you get to 120 degrees of hip flexion, you should be at a pretty good low point of the squat, below parallel. But when you say, okay, I want you squatting ass to grass, but you don't have 120 degrees of hip flexion, you only have 90, you're going to squat down to 90, and then the pelvis is going to make up for the rest of that movement, and that's guess what opens first? L5S1. L5S1 opens, then L4-5. So you open L5S1 enough without load, you can get away with it. But as soon as you start adding load, you need less reps to bulge and herniated disc. So to answer your question, hip mobility and thoracic mobility. If you have really good thoracic mobility, you can keep your chest up. If you've got really good hip mobility, you can get to that 120 degrees. And then if you have got really good intra-abdominal pressure or core stability, you're good to go, basically. Now, every spine has a potential of what they can lift and what they can't. Before I turned 40, and she'll attest to this, my goal was to squat and deadlift 400 pounds. And I did it, but at the time I was only 180, 185 pounds. And I hurt my back bad. Like I had herniations before, but it took me 3 or 4 months to get over an L5S1 herniation. And I know when I did it, like I was training, and I was training heavy. And
What do you hear, a pop?
I didn't hear a pop. I just felt it. And I'd done it before in my 20s. So I knew, and I still continued to do it because I wanted to hit that marker before I turned 40. And it took me months, and I'm still dealing with it to a certain degree. Like ask her these past few days. I actually got a heavy bag from my clinic, and it was in this big box. I was pulling it out of the car, and I just couldn't be in a good position with my spine, and the box tore, and I went to grab it, and I felt my back strain a little bit. So I've been dealing with some sciatica for the last 4 or 5 days. Good news is I know how to manage it, so I'm almost 100%. But yes, that's bang on. Is that L5S1?
Yeah, and like to be honest, man, like I think a lot of the people that see this aren't going to understand until they blow their fucking back out.
Yeah,
like let's be honest, man. I always heard this, and there are people going to hear this, and they're not going to wake up, right? Guys, it's not about the weight. You know, you don't need to throw on 6 plates on the squats to look cool in the gym. I promise you it's not worth it, because once you do bulge it like I did, I've been dealing with it ever since I was 21 years old, and I'm 31 now. So for 10 years, it's never gone away, right? Again, you learn how to mitigate it. So I'm mitigating right now, but it'll never get fixed. Like I know that, and I don't know how you feel about that, but I've tried everything, man. Like it's for me, I've tried everything, and it doesn't matter. It's always going to be there, but I don't feel it necessarily anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I believe, I don't want to contradict what you're saying, but it will heal if you know what to do. You just have to. Have you ever heard the term centralize? Okay. So if you take a jelly donut and the front of it is facing me and the back of it is facing you, and I squeeze that donut enough, it's going to get a little tear in the back of it, and a little bit of the jelly is going to come out. Okay, that's a bulge.
Right.
Okay, push a little. Well, technically not a bulge. The ligament being pushed out by the jelly is a bulge. Now, what will happen over time is the donut will actually tear a little bit, which is that annulus fibrosis or that ligament around the disc. Then the jelly comes out. That's a herniation. Depending on the degree of the herniation, you can fix it to a certain degree, but you have to find what's called position of preference. Have you ever heard that terminology?
A little bit.
It's basically the position that you need to move into exercise-wise to pull the disc back in.
Gotcha.
And then over time, what can happen is that ligament can actually scar over, and you can build some resilience back in it. Right. And then the data actually shows that as you get older, it'll actually just kind of adhere over, and you'll lose a little bit of mobility and function out of that joint, but the disc will heal. And you'll be a little stiff there, but now it's actually solidified. Yeah. It's almost like a self it's a self-fusion surgery.
Yeah.
Which you never want.
Yeah, and that's what everyone says. Like, oh, get a surgery on your backside. I will never. And actually, Jordan, shout out to him. He actually called me, and he had the same problem. L5S1. We got his MRI back, and I said, dude, listen, it's again, in my experience, it's not going anywhere at least unless you go talk to Dr. Rob. Maybe he'll fix you. You know, maybe I got to get some sessions. But
Yeah.
you know,
He
again,
has
like
been called the Miracle Man.
hey, you know, well, maybe we got to figure it out
my
because
shoulder.
I've had a lot of people look at me and know what's being able to fix it, right?
Yeah.
And him, I just had to yell at him the other day because he just had this happen a few months ago. He's finally got it. We can kind of, you know, mitigate it a little bit, but he's over there, you know, T-bar rowing 6 plates. I'm like, dude, you just blew
hurt
this
it
thing
again.
out. You're gonna hurt it again, Jordan. So stop doing that, man.
There's a lot of knowledge that needs to kind of be taught to manage it and or heal it. But you can definitely, like, there's times where I don't even realize it's there, and there's other times that it's kind of there, but but when you know position of preference, which is again the direction you need to work it back in and then rehab around it, it's actually not. I can even show you after the podcast.
So
actually, let's hop you up on the table right now.
Yeah, I know, right? We will. They're right. Live session here.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so this is my another big question for this exact topic. This is a big one, and this is one of the ones I really want to talk about. So sitting, when you have that L5S1, L4, L5, whatever, how bad is sitting for you all day? Horrible, right?
Horrible.
Yeah. So Jacqueline right now, she's a pro on my team. She does a lot of driving with her daughter, right? She actually paid to have somebody drive her daughter on now because she's sitting in a car in traffic for 90 minutes a day. That's the worst. So I used to play professional Fortnite, to be honest with you. I had like 107,000 followers on Instagram, right?
That's awesome.
I really got into it. But the problem was I was sitting there playing Fortnite for 10 fucking hours a day. Dude, it got to the point where I couldn't even stand up without pain. So I want to hype on that a little bit. And what can we do to fix it?
Okay, so sitting is the new smoking, right?
Health-wise, I wouldn't recommend it.
Yeah. So I gave a talk back in 2013 when the Cleveland Clinic just came out with the sitting is the new smoking. And the reason they're saying that is, I'll let you answer this, but it's more the metabolic effects of non-movement of sitting, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were meant to move 12 hours a day, minimum. You know, like we were hunter-gatherers, right? So we weren't meant to sit all day. And if you're sitting, you're not moving.
Yep.
And we really should be moving. I mean, there's so much good data, even just 8,000 steps a day, reversal of disease, et cetera. So the biggest issue we have right now is sitting. You know what I mean? As far as one of the questions that I ask my patients is how many hours out of the day are you in front of the screen? Because that typically means sitting.
Yeah.
And we work on that because you've got to get up to that 8,000 to, 12,000? I think we presented a study on our podcast recently.
That's your side.
For steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so
Just activity, you know, like
That definitely makes a lot of sense.
and as far as the L5S1, walking, like I had a person come in on Friday with like a newly herniated disc, and I showed her position of preference, which is it basically starts to pull the disc back in, pushing the jelly back into the donut. And then I said to her, I was like, as much as you can, I want you to walk this weekend.
Yeah.
Walk. Because when you walk, you go into lordosis, okay, which I'll just use the book. But let's say this is your back right here. This is the front, this is the back. Your spine craves this position. It's called lordosis, okay? When you lift, you want to be in lordosis. When you walk, you want to be in lordosis. Actually, walking naturally, is that the camera that's there?
Well,
Is that one there? Okay.
Camera.
There's lordosis for the folks watching. Okay. So when you stand up, your spine naturally goes in lordosis. So I can tell you right now, when somebody, I can typically diagnose somebody's back problem in the history often without even examining them because the trend is always the same. And my book talks about it. If you have pain sitting that improves with walking, you typically have some sort of disc issue. If you have pain with walking that gets better with sitting, you usually have some sort of joint nerve or stenosis issue, which is much harder to get rid of.
Gotcha.
But yeah, so for your client who's sitting a lot, the most important thing is some sort of lumbar support to
Behind
get
the
your
back, right?
Yeah, but it's got to be tucked to get out. So a lot of the car, one of the reasons I bought the car I have is because it doesn't just have lumbar support, but the lumbar support moves up and down, which is glorious.
She just
mine does
spent, I think, I don't know, $80,000, I think, is around that price on a cheap Cherokee that has massage seats.
Yeah.
So I told her, I said, exactly what you just said, guys. I've been doing this for a while. The biggest thing I said is make sure you get something to go behind your back.
Yep.
And the same, she's like, well, I got the one with the massage seats. I'm like, perfect.
Okay, but the thing is too is, do you know what the PSIS is? You ever heard that term? It's the little bone nubs that are at the bottom of this. So if you got L5 right here, the little, I should have brought my little spine with me. The bone nubs, you can feel them on yourself there.
Absolutely.
That's actually where you want to put the support.
Gotcha.
Okay, this is the PSIS. You've got the ilium right here, and then you have L5 sticking back.
Yep.
If most people will put their lumbar supports above the area, and then this will actually sink. So if this is L5 down here, if you don't have it supported down here and you're supported up here, the bottom pelvis is going to pull around this.
more.
It's like a butt wink, basically. So you've actually got to get that support right down low. So when you advise her next time you talk to her after this podcast,
She'll watch
have her roll up a towel. I usually there's something you can get called a McKenzie lumbar roll. You can get it on Amazon for like $25.
He's been wearing it for the last 3 nights.
Yeah, well, that's the sleep roll basically.
okay.
But yeah, we can get into that. But basically, or you just take a towel. Yay big, I mean 6-inch diameter. Foam roll's too hard. You need something compressible.
Yeah.
But just wrap it with some tape and then literally sit in whatever seat you're sitting in and stuff it down as low as you can get it. And you'll feel like you're sitting kind of like big belly out. But people who have back pain always go, oh, it feels amazing. And yeah, because driving and sitting is one of the worst things you can do.
So we've been talking about like basically what to do after the fact, post injury, right? So you're saying, okay, stiff thoracic spine, stiff hips, and potentially they're the core, right?
Yeah.
So heavy core. So what are some great preventative measures that we can utilize, especially if somebody has like a stiff thoracic spine? How do we increase the mobility in that? Because I know like I utilize like a chirp wheel, and I really like to
it's great.
just hang out in that position and just stretch. Like what would be your?
So that's perfect. So like Shannon was saying, like if you're at a desk and you're an 8-hour-a-day person, I usually tell everybody a lot of micro breaks. So every time you get up for a pee break, water break, lunch break, get back on a chirp wheel or get a physio ball and just lay back on it and hang out. Or there's a couple of moves in here that I'll show. I'm not trying to pimp my book. I'm like the worst.
It's always fun though when you've done all this research and you've done all this work and you could just pull open a book. You're like, guys, that's
He's
right.
got QR codes and
So we
everything.
got QR codes. But like this move, right? Is that that's just called a standing thoracic extension.
Yep, I do that a lot.
Yeah, I tell people to do that. Just stand on the back of your chair and just arch your back down. And these are thoracic rotations.
Okay.
So there's something called coupled movement in the lumbar spine and the thoracic spine, where when you go into rotation, that's a coupled movement of extension and lateral flexion.
Okay.
So when you're doing rotation of the thoracic spine, you're actually extending it and laterally flexing it. So you're getting 2 birds with 1 stone, basically. But yeah, like that one where you either have your hands pushed out or your arms here and you're kind of arching your back down. You're just trying to go in opposition to what you've been doing all day.
Exactly.
Which people will say, well, I try to sit up straight at the computer. Bullshit.
Never gonna work.
You can't. You will always
sink
get.
every single
I mean,
time.
I'm catching myself now doing it. You get tired, right? So what I say to people is just, if you catch yourself here, which you will, sit up until you forget about it, and then go, oh yeah, I'm in a bad position, and then hold it up again, and then when you get it for a break, do a little micro movement. Basically, that's one of the best things you can do. And then before you train, if you have to do something overhead, if you've got a squat or deadlift, and you need to have a chest up position, same thing, a little bit of thoracic mobility, because in the absence of proper thoracic extension, you can't get your shoulder blades back to pack for lat stiffness for a squat. Or scapular stability for a pressing movement. So thoracic movement is super, super important.
Okay, now what for like something simple in terms of mobilizing the hips? Would that be like a toddler squat? or
toddler squat. The problem with a toddler squat is if you have, are you talking like a goblet squat where
well,
you
yeah,
just sit down?
you're just sitting right here in that
Yeah.
position and just
Yep. So I do that before I squat. That's the last thing I do before I squat. I take a 25-pound plate and I basically drop down into it. I push my elbows open and then I try to get my knees open. But for somebody who's got a back issue, if their hips are stiff and their hips are not mobile enough, they're going to have a hard time getting down there. So what I would do first is some sort of pigeon opening.
exactly,
Okay.
something like that.
You know what a hip airplane is?
Those, yeah,
Yep.
oh, sorry.
Standing. Hip airplane is one of my absolute favorite because it's super practical. So yeah, anything. Kettlebell weight shift, if they got tight adductors. I mean, all of that is great. That I always say to people, if you have a movement fault and or pain and you've been given rehab by you guys or me, use that as the warm-up because that typically is the low-hanging fruit to get people into a good position.
Yeah.
Right.
And then go to your sport-specific warm-up like a lighter squat or whatever. You know what I mean?
Me having this injury, it's so fun for me to talk about. So, to be honest, man, I have not squatted in like probably 8 years. I mean, I barely can leg press for the most part. Like I still have big legs, I do, but I'm very limited, right? And I think a lot of people are scared because a lot of people are in my position right now where we've got it into a point where it's okay. But again, you guys are talking about going down there, doing that squat like you just did with the 25. I would be in pain the next day.
So
Pain the next day.
let me ask you a question. Are you in pain sitting there right now?
100%. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's there.
Is it
It's there.
localized or is it going down your leg?
It's definitely going down my leg. It's
Okay,
definitely
just
not-
localized in your back.
Yeah.
And then when you go up in a big chest up position, does that feel any better?
There's like a sharp knife in like my lower back at all times, 24/7, never goes away.
Oh my god!
For the most part.
If you give me, I bet I could have you squatting pain free, light, like just 45s aside in one session.
You think so?
100%. Yeah, I mean
Maybe
that's
we'll book it out, you know what I'm saying? Hey, like I said, but here's the
classic
thing.
physique 2020.
That's it. If you give me squatting again, you let me know.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I pretty much put my career on hold because I can't do much without pain. Like I went to the rehab guy and like, you know how you take your legs and you part them over and you stretch and stuff?
Yes.
Like he did some of that and I'm telling you for 4 days I was in pain.
See, I would never do that stretch with you, and I call
I
those.
even know that.
Yeah, I call those. So I've got a section here called backbreakers, and that's one of my backbreakers. Like lying on your back and pulling your knees to your chest, contraindicated.
Dude, it killed me.
I know.
Yeah,
Well,
that
because
killed me.
it's creating flexion.
Yeah, a lot of
Flexion,
flexion.
and rotation. So there's a study that Dr. McGill did, who's one of my mentors out of Canada, and he basically took and people. There's always the fucking expert, excuse my language, on my favorite thing to say
let it
about
go.
social media
Let it
is
go, Rob.
nobody's
Yeah, you
an
can go off.
nobody's an expert because everybody is, right? You can look good or you can have a weekend, whatever in nutrition. Now all of a sudden you're an expert, and the experts don't know as much as you because you read a couple studies, okay? But I mean, have you done your 10,000 hours? Because those are the experts, okay?
Experience is
Yeah.
how
Yes.
you become
How
an
about
expert.
I've Googled it though?
Yeah, well, exactly. I've done me
Yeah.
search.
There's a lot of coaches. We see the same thing in our industry, man. A lot
Absolutely,
of
a
people
lot.
they do one prep and they think they can do it, but it's experience, guys. And I'm only getting better. You're only getting better with every
100%.
client. You're going to get better.
100%.
And experience is what really matters.
100%.
So
So this is
We've got 50 years between us.
that's ridiculous.
Isn't that
Hey,
crazy?
I mean, between me and him, we got over 30.
that's exactly
So,
it. And
getting
we
there.
know that we're this is why we're meant for each other. We've been together almost 30 years and it's never going away. Like she'll literally text me in the middle of the day and be like, I was just out for my walk listening to this podcast and listen to what Rhonda Patrick said or listen to what Dr. Rono said.
Constantly
and like
learning.
we geek out about this. I mean, I love
It's
it.
definitely dinner conversation.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you guys are learning exactly like you're learning from a podcast, you're learning from YouTube, but it's also about who you listen to.
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
If you're listening to somebody who just did one show or whatever, he just got out of school and he just never
Yeah.
worked with somebody, he's gonna have all these but until you're in it, guys, you're not gonna know shit.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to know who you're following.
Yeah. So, and you also have to have a baseline of understanding. Like she and I have, we've got 3 degrees between the two of us, and we understand physiology, and so we can kind of get into the cellular stuff and the myocellular stuff and all that. But what I was going to say with the flexion rotation is, Stuart McGill took pig spines because they're pretty closely related to human spines, and he put them into machines. And yes, there wasn't muscle acting on them and all that, but a ligament is a ligament when you take it to end range. So basically what he did was he flexed and rotated these spines, and he tried to figure out how many, measured them in newtons of force because he's one of those engineering geeks, super smart, geeky guys.
We need them.
Yeah, exactly.
We need them.
And he figured out what it takes to herniate a disc, basically. And this is the interesting thing. He showed flexion without load a disc will herniate at X amount of reps. When you add load to the flexion, okay, so again, now picture a body weight squat, butt winking, okay? If you took somebody with a perfectly healthy spine, body weight squatted them, okay, no weight, and just had them do it till the cows come home and they butt winked, they'll herniate at some point, okay? Now, add load to it. I can't remember the exact numbers. We could probably look it up. Well, you can look it up, but I can't remember the numbers now. But you decrease the amount of reps significantly when you add load to that flexion. So now you take that person who's butt winking with their body weight, they flex and flex and flex and flex and flex. Maybe it takes them 6 months to herniate. You add a 35-pound kettlebell and start doing goblet squats with them. Now maybe it only takes 1 month to herniate. Add rotation to that, and it cuts the amount of reps in half, basically.
Gotcha.
So that's why you see a lot of people who flex. Actually, that guy we were talking to at the pool, Charlie's friend.
Yeah.
He's an ex-athlete, and he's like, yeah, I herniated my disc back in high school.
Yep.
And he goes, he's a traveling salesman now. He goes, I was in the airport the other day, and he's only 32 years old. I think he's your guys' age. And he goes, God, I blew my back on Saturday because this little old lady was having trouble picking up her suitcase. And he goes, ma'am, let me help you.
Off the carousel.
Yeah, he's trying to be a nice guy. And he goes, I flexed. Well, the interesting thing was he
Rotate.
flexed and he rotated to the left.
He moves.
And he goes, I blew my back. I go, let me guess, you got a right-sided back issue. He goes, yeah, how did you know? Because he went flexion, left rotation to the left. That's exactly what mine is, because I grew up playing hockey, stick on this side, and I also snowboarded a ton. So if you know anything about snowboarding, when you get off the lift, you got to basically sit and flex and do your back binding up. So that's what blew my disc to the right.
Gotcha.
So position of preference for me is extension with lateral flexion away, because that creates a closing moment to push the disc back in.
Gotcha.
So that's what I would do at you. I'd look at your hip mobility, which I guarantee there's going to be some
There's
restriction.
none, buddy. I do this. You know what I'm saying? There's no mobility there.
But we would
That's gone.
look at centralizing your disc, look at your hip mobility, look at form, just to see if there's a way we can kind of get you open to take some load off your spine. I'm 100% certain.
Well, we're going to get together after this, 100%.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about CrossFit?
I think CrossFit's great.
You like
I
CrossFit?
think you just...
You know what? Listen, I think you like CrossFit because there's so many injuries that come with it.
good for your
and you want to make
business.
fucking money.
CrossFit's,
Okay? So
CrossFit's great for my business. It's great. Here's what I'll say about CrossFit. I like the fact that CrossFit pulls anybody in and says, let's get you fitter.
100%.
The only thing I don't like about CrossFit is it's a skill-based movement patterning that always isn't the best about teaching skill-based. Now, if there's CrossFitters listening, they'd be like, that's bullshit. We teach everybody blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
I've seen a ton of injuries. Now, here's the thing. CrossFit still utilizes...
making money. You can't go too hard on it.
Yeah, CrossFit still utilizes a lot of spinal flexion extension. And we know with spinal flexion extension, you're gonna herniate a disc or you're gonna blow a facet. Now you're gonna again have all these people who are out there going, research shows that the spine should move. Well, yeah, the spine should move, but I'm telling you, if you're over a certain age and you do that, you're gonna jack yourself up.
Yeah.
The thing that I think CrossFit does is it builds a community.
Exactly.
People get together, they train together, they're supportive, and I love that.
They're moving.
Absolutely.
They're moving, exactly.
You know, and
Now,
that's
if you're 65, do you need to do a muscle up? Probably not.
Or like
But
a burp. What do you think about burpees?
I
it's
fucking
a
hate
backbreaker.
Burpees. It's
You
a
do?
backbreaker. Yeah.
Clean and jerks and all that stuff.
I don't mind.
like-
So I still do clean and jerks. Okay,
Yeah.
I don't go heavy, but it's a functional movement. The problem
Why
with
don't you
it-
like burpees?
Because burpees create spinal flexion with two phases on the way down, on the way up. If you have great hip mobility and you know how to keep your spine in a neutral position, burpee all day long. The problem is people utilize burpees to get heart rate up on people because it gives them a good workout. Okay. But the problem is the vast majority of people sit all day long.
Yeah.
Their hips stiffen up, their thoracic spine stiffens up. So they get down into a body. So technically to do a good burpee, you got to do what you just did. You got to go into that goblet squat. You got to be able to get down, keep your spine neutral, 120 degrees of hip flexion, get your hands to the ground, pop back out, plank, come back up into that same position. We could get online right now and Google burpees, and I guarantee there's only about 2 out of 10 people that we're going to see doing burpees that are doing them the right way, that are not injurious. And the problem is they're utilized a lot with the older population, even with the younger population.
Everyone's
because and here's the thing, I always say, I'm not here to tell you what to do and what not to do. I'm telling you what I know that I've seen clinically that is good and bad. And if you want to do burpees, burpee all you want. I've got a video.
And then come see me.
Come see me.
Don't charge this guy on this topic.
Yeah, exactly.
He wants the money.
Yeah, I mean, like it's funny. Like we did a video on this. It's probably like 2 weeks ago on my Instagram. I had my daughter doing a burpee,
People
and
get mad.
People get mad. Like,
No.
you're creating
hate.
What do they say? Nocebic behavior. The physical
no.
therapists love to say the word nocebic. It's like nocebic basically means fear of movement, and it's like, well, you know what? Taking a sword and sticking it in my eye is nocebic as well. So I ain't gonna do that. Okay, but it's the same thing. If you have good movement. Okay, it's the same thing as somebody who walks into you guys or walks into me, and they look like an ape like this, and they
do this pose. I think we got one right here. Actually.
Yeah, but
okay,
but Dustin,
Yeah, but he's talking about.
But
No,
Dustin,
I
you
know,
can do
it's-
this, right? Look at how good his external rotation is. If you were to come to me with a shoulder that is painful, but you can do this, and you said to me, should I still bench? I'd say, let me look at your external rotation. Yes, you can still bench, okay, because you've got good mobility and good stability. But if you come into me and I say, let me see your external rotation, and you do this,
Yeah. I know a lot of people like that.
I'm going to go, you probably shouldn't bench because you're going to get stronger, but you're going to get stronger in this motion. It's only a matter of time before your shoulder blows out.
Exactly.
And so it's like, should you bench? Listen, I'm a libertarian, man. Do what you want. You know what I mean?
So that's kind of like our next thing. I mean, the second biggest injury in bodybuilding is shoulders.
Yeah.
He's got one right now going on. You know, I've had multiple in the past, you know, and I've been able to exactly fix my own self, you know, and so there's so many different things. So how do you diagnose a shoulder injury? There's so many different things, right? You got the labrum, you got the rotator cuff, you got, I mean, there's just so much. So go break that down.
So we have specific testing we use, right? So typically for a damaged labrum, like I tore my labrum snowboarding when I was like 23. I went off a jump, came down and my board hit ice and I slipped toe side this way.
And so you fucking.
And I put my hand down and then I hit the ground and my shoulder went pow and it just jammed up and and this is Canada. This is, you know, everybody talks about the great Canadian healthcare system. Well, you got to wait like 6 months for an MRI. So you got to be like really, yeah, she did. Thank God.
So tell us what the labrum is so people know.
So the labrum, okay. So if you look at the shoulder is a ball and socket joint. Okay. And it's got a very shallow socket. So the labrum sits on the outside and it comes out a little bit. It's a piece of cartilage and it's to create more depth for when the ball comes in, the labrum will just come around a little bit to create more depth because it's shallow joint, whereas the hip socket's pretty deep. So the labrum is where the bicep tendon comes up and attaches to, and then basically the glenohumeral ligaments come around. So it helps create stability and depth. So basically you'll get these little tears in it, and the way you can diagnose that is through kind of performance. Okay, like I jam my shoulder. You'll typically see labral tears in overhead athletes, volleyball players, baseball players, that sort of thing. You'll see them with instability. Okay, if somebody's got an unstable shoulder, the labrum can go with that. But we do something called O'Brien's test, okay, where you turn down this way and you push up against it, and that puts max tension on the labrum. Positive test would be pain here, no pain here. You're looking at a potential for a labrum. There's false positives all the time, though. So,
but also, like, isn't it like the labrum's a big ring, right? So the thing is, like, you might feel pain here. And this is what I'm trying to explain to you guys. You might feel pain here, but you might feel no pain here. So your solid raises, you'd be like, wow, I don't feel anything.
100%.
But right when you put any pressure here, there's pain. So
a lot of times, I mean, I've had tons of athletes over the years with torn labrums, and unless they have major dysfunction and they can't perform the sport, we just rehab it, honestly. I mean, I would never have mine repaired because I'd lose range of motion, honestly.
I heard you can't heal it though. It's one of those things once
No,
damage
you
is done.
can't. You can't. It's like a meniscus because it doesn't have a big blood supply. So you're not going to heal it. But you can have, you know, pretty good function in the shoulder with a torn labrum. You just have to be strong everywhere else. So to answer your question, to diagnose that, we have testing. And we have impingement testing for the supraspinatus. I do a little bit of that, but I've gotten away in probably the last 5 to 10 years away from a lot of, you have an impingement of the supraspinatus, let's do something about it. What I do a lot now is I look at shoulder mobility and shoulder stability, and that usually takes care of most of it. So describe your shoulder issue to me.
So, I mean, the biggest, well, I heard it in football in high school. Basically coming through the line, muddy, got hit in the legs, went out, and then, you know, hand slipped on the mud, and I went this way.
Yeah, so you did the exact same thing I did.
Tore some cartilage and stuff like that.
You ever get an MRI?
Yeah, and so that's where they found out.
They found okay. So you're
torn cartilage.
yeah. So the torn cartilage is the labrum,
Right,
basically.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, over the years, everything's fine. There's not too crazy of pain, but the way that I feel it now is when I'm doing like a fly, so a chest fly. As I'm opening up, I'll feel like a every time, and I'll squeeze. Cool, fine. No pain, no pain, no pain, no pain. A little discomfort, and then no pain, and then
hitting that zone.
So so what that typically is, and I get that too myself. And it's funny you mentioned that about your PT. He was bang on because of my torn labrum. I've not loved being back here for years and years. So what I've done recently in the last few months, which has helped immensely. And you see me kind of before I go to bed with my hand up on the closet door, and I've been trying to loosen up my pec minor and my pec major, because if that becomes restricted, then that's going to add to the anterior translation of the shoulder, which means it's gliding forward. So for you, I'm almost willing to bet I could do some muscle testing on your shoulder, and it's either going to be a mid-trap weakness or serratus anterior weakness, and we can test for that. And it's just a simple test. Like I hold your arm out and put you into scapular plane. If it breaks away, I know we got a serratus anterior issue. But a lot of times, regardless of what the MRI shows or what the symptoms are, the body's pretty amazing at stabilizing itself once you tell it's really about what the brain is telling the system to do. If you can tell the brain to turn on the right musculature, to turn on the right part of the stabilizing functions, you can literally work around almost anything, unless it's a catastrophic blowout, you know what I mean? Like you've completely pulled your pec off the bone or something like that. Then you need an orthopedic surgeon at that point. But a lot of times with an old injury like that, something's shut off.
Yeah.
And something's too loose, basically.
I mean, honestly, I feel like it's affected some of my back workouts or my ability to flare my lat.
Yeah.
And like
There's been a few times in prep where we had to talk about that when he was like, man, my shoulder's fucking killing me today, especially in the beginning. Of course, when we get on different compounds and you get stuff pumping, it feels a lot better.
Yeah.
But
You guys
we got to
need-
fix the problem.
You guys just need to come in and we'll just play around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'll just kind of watch you guys move a little bit, and you guys are so fit and healthy.
I mean, I'm definitely faster than him. You know what I'm saying?
Thanks, dude.
I can
We
still
have not
move pretty
raced
good
yet.
for an old guy.
I'm undefeated right now, so we'll have to
He
get
has
this
a
raised.
strip of turf in
Yeah.
his office.
Hey, you know,
He
we're
might make
we
you guys
might
do it.
stop though. That's the problem. It's
Yeah, I was going to say, we're not going to do that because you'll run right through you'll go right through my front window.
That is freaking hilarious.
But so that's a good segue into another topic. Is we are so MRI driven now because they're so cost effective and so cheap. 15 years ago, well, first of all, in Canada, nobody's getting MRIs unless it's trauma, right? So we had to teach. I mean, we were taught to be skillful practitioners because we couldn't just order an MRI at the drop of a hat. I send people to Acumen here in town.
$200.
$200. It's super easy.
Real quick, a big thing for people, and it's pure laziness when I ask them to go get an MRI, because of course, I don't know how you feel about this, but I feel like if we get an MRI, at least we know what it is, right?
Yeah.
At least we'll know exactly what it is. Like he did his MRI, I got my MRI, so I know it's my L5S1. If it was a different vertebrae, like I would know, right?
Yep.
So I think people are fucking lazy. Like you could literally go to any of your primary care doctor, get an MRI. It's $200, guys.
Yeah.
Like it's super cheap. So continue.
Super, super cheap. But I was going to say, it will give you, it'll give you a, what's the best word I'm looking for here? It'll give you a suggestion of what the issue is, but an MRI won't give you a full clinical picture. That's kind of so a lot of times when people come in with an MRI, they'll say, yeah, here, take a look at my MRI. And I always say, but hold on, let's talk first. Let me examine you. And then let me tell you what I think you have based on what, and then I'll confirm it with the MRI. That's the way I like to utilize it. But yeah, it's good. I mean, if you got somebody coming in and you're doing like an assessment on, they've got an MRI, awesome. Look at it, then you know what to kind of map around, right?
I also think it's really important for people to understand, like, majority of the time, 95% of the time, you don't need surgery. And when you go to these people, the first thing they're going to say is surgery.
Yeah.
The first thing they told Jordan was surgery. He called me and said, Jordan, shut up.
Yeah.
We're not getting fucking surgery, bro. Like, you're 6 years old, bro. We're not going to get back surgery.
No.
We're fine. Come talk to me. And we had a big talk about it. And he's back to lifting. So
Unless it's catastrophic, like, again, your tear.
had to get it done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have
That was
to.
dumb.
Yeah, I mean,
I had to surgically attach, get it back.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we left Lawrence, Kansas, and as part of the medical team for the University of Kansas, we had a great surgeon there named Jeff Randall. Guy was awesome. Had a surgery at the University of Kansas for orthopedics, and I can't tell you how many times that I thought people needed surgery, and he'd be like, "Go back to Rob and just keep rehabbing this thing. It's going to get better."
Yep. And it does get better.
And it does get better. Now, he cleaned up the meniscus on my left knee. It's been fine, but the best surgeons are the ones who say, come back when
Exactly.
the rehab doesn't work.
Or they know who to refer to who properly rehabs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And that's the problem. And it's majority of the people don't, know what they're doing. And like, it's really tough, man. Like I said, I've had a lot of people look at my back. No one's ever been able to help me. Ever in my entire, and I've seen probably 20 people at this point.
Let's
you know what I'm
go.
saying? We're gonna figure it out.
go.
Just wait till
He'll
everybody
take the challenge.
figures out what he can do.
Yeah,
Let's go.
And that's exciting, man. And like I know that's probably exciting for you to hear that too. You know?
Yeah.
Because I see you move, and you don't have anything that presents. Like I've got a guy right now who's got probably the worst back I've seen in 25 years. Wow. And if he were not he's from Russia, and I'm not giving anything away. I'm not going to say his name because of HIPAA, but he's an ex-boxer. He's tough as nails. He had a really tough upbringing, but he's very successful now. If he weren't as tough as he is, we've been working with this guy for like 3 months, and I've said to him a couple of times, I don't think I can fix this. I think he goes, I'm not having surgery. I watched my dad go through it.
Yep.
It ruined his life. He goes, I will do whatever it takes. And he gets better, then he gets a little worse, and he's tracking the right direction. But he came in today, and he's got something called a lateral shift, where he's crooked. It's called an antalgic posture. It's basically because the disc is so far out that the brain knows if it goes any further, it's going to do some damage. So it's holding him in this position, and I'm having a devil of a time trying to fix the guy. But he came in better today. I go, what'd you do? And he goes, I just pushed through it. He's just Russian grinder. And he's like,
That's the mindset we need.
oh man, these guys, it's like Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? Like go to the
Savages.
freaking icy waters and swim against the current.
Fight bears.
Yeah, exactly, right? But he's like, yeah, I just did the exercise you taught me. He goes, I pushed through the pain, and but the thing is, not everybody's willing to do that, man. A lot of people, you know what I mean? He's in the 1% of people who are willing to do that. Most people are like, cut this shit out of me. Give me whatever meds it takes. I want to be better. But the problem is, it's a temporary fix.
Exactly.
It's a temporary
It's never
fix.
gonna get better like
Even
that.
if you get back surgery, guys, it's not going to matter. You're just gonna have more injuries on top of that.
Yeah,
you know?
because now I will say the good surgeons who are doing like microdiscectomies, where they're just going in and just pulling a little bit of the disc out.
Yep.
It's like having a knee meniscectomy. They're just pulling a little tissue out of there to relieve the pressure on the nerve. I've seen plenty of people do well with that, but when you start seeing
disc replacements and
disc
fusions.
replacements and fusions and like pedicle screws back in Kansas, this is going back 6-8 years. Blue Cross Blue Shield was our major insurer for the state. They stopped covering disc fusions back in 2012, I want to say, because the outcomes were so poor. I mean, 50-50 at best.
Wow.
And the problem is you fuse one level, now that is not moving. So guess what happens? The level
just
above
keeps
it is
going
going to
up.
start to move. It's going to herniate.
Yep.
And then, and I had a woman years ago who had like 3 different fusions.
Wow.
Never got better from it. And the doctor that did that, I want to say, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like,
He knew better.
yeah. Well, but I don't know if he did, to tell you the truth, Dustin. I mean, like I think he just said, well, let's just use the next one and see what happens. And how many times have you heard
money, bro?
Well, right. How
It's
many
money.
times have you heard people talk about their surgeon saying, yeah, let's just go in and see what's there? It's like, fuck you. You're not just going to go into my shoulder, do a surgical. It's like saying, well, it's like me saying, well, lay on your back, let me feel around. That's a little different than being, let me put you under anesthesia with the
Slit you
risk of
open.
whatever, slit you open. You know what I mean? And like, it's just not like, okay, now you go back to work the next day. You got to recover. It's major trauma to your body, right? So let's go in and explore, because I don't know any better. How about go to a movement specialist and see what they can do for you?
I think that's what you're finding is that there's very few people who understand what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but
Go toot away.
That's what we're here for.
yeah,
Brag about it.
I don't know. I haven't, because we've only been here 2 years. I haven't met a lot of other practitioners here. There's got to be people here who are trained the way I am. But back in kind of where we lived in Lawrence in the Kansas City area, there was about 4 or 5 clinics other than mine. These guys are great. They're called the Fit Muscle and Joint Clinics. These guys are awesome. They bring in new practitioners that are trained the same way they are, which is trained the same way I am.
Perfect.
Which is basically, they do adjustments, they do physio, they do strength and conditioning. They are on the up. They're always on the latest cutting edge. They're bringing in great speakers. They would bring in speakers from all over the country
To teach you guys.
To teach, and yeah, it was amazing. I learned a lot from the teachers they
But
came
I'm
in
talking
with.
MDs, like they just know to prescribe something for the symptom.
Yeah.
They're just kind of like, for me, they're lacking nutrition education, but for you, they're lacking
Well, if somebody goes, so this is the problem, right? And it's the same here as it was back in Kansas, as it was back in Toronto. When people hurt themselves, they go to their doctor because that's just, they've all been programmed to do it. And the doctor goes, oh, it looks like you hurt your shoulder. Here's an anti-inflammatory. Here's a muscle relaxant. Now go to physical therapy or go to an orthopedist. And okay, now you've lost time, right? It took you a week to get into your doctor, or maybe it didn't. Okay, now it's going to take you another week to get into your physical therapist, or another 2 weeks to get into the ortho. That's time you've lost versus finding a good, reliable source and saying, I got it. And let's get you doing something day one.
Active, right off the rip.
Right off the bat. Motion's lotion, right? Like if you came into me with an acute low back and you could barely walk, I'd have my hands on you first, trying to do some work to try to like do whatever I could to mitigate the disc, but I would have you moving day one in some capacity to help ameliorate this thing because it's lost time. Have you seen, you've probably seen it scrolling through TikTok, right? Where you have a cross section of an MRI of like a 75-year-old runner where there's this nice beefy quad and then the same age person who is inactive and it's literally like it's nothing. It's like a ring of fat with a little bit of muscle in it.
There's like more bone than there is muscle.
It's sad, man. And we've been noticing this a lot since we moved here. Are you guys from Florida originally?
I'm from Florida.
I'm originally from California.
Okay. So, I mean, California's a pretty active state, right? So it's probably not as bad there. But you have so many people that come elsewhere here at an older age. I tell her all the time, I'm like, I watch people walk past my office and they're all hunched over and they can barely move.
Well, a lot of people are up in the snow. You know, Florida's like one of those retirement states. You have people that are up in, you know, New York and all them upstate places, man. They don't want to be active. They're not active, to be honest with you. They want to sit in their home and drink and eat fucking McDonald's and be fat. And like, we need to start fat shaming. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be one of the first. I mean, people talk about it, but I ain't scared to say nothing.
So remember,
I agree.
Remember when you were up in Toronto with me and you were doing the counseling and you remember that one guy, he was having like 4 whiskeys a night or something. Remember how you probably don't remember this, but
Kind of.
she was looking at a food diary.
I've had 2 children. I have no brain left.
Yeah. But she was looking at a food diary and she was like, you guys drink way too much up here. And I'm like, because it's cold 6 months a year. There's not much else to do. Now, for active people, we find stuff to do, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's a lot of people who just like sit around and drink.
They want their McDonald's, bro. They want their Twinkies. They want their wine. All these wine girls and stuff want to sit there and drink wine all day and not move. And that's why you're going to be fat. And, you know, if you need help, you know, you come to me and Dustin. And
it's hard. I mean, like the conversation that we had over at the Speaks Media little party, you know, like we were saying, you know, muscle is longevity. Muscle is the key to the longevity because, you know, that's going to be the first thing that deteriorates. And if you have an excess surplus of muscle, it's going to take a lot longer to deteriorate.
100%.
Well, and then just metabolically, just what it does, like even just with blood sugar and insulin control, and just on a metabolic level, it's just unbelievable. Like I just wrote, I'm a obesity prevention expert, and so everybody's on Ozempic or like GLP-1s.
Do you believe in that? Do you believe in that?
You know, I do believe in it as long as people get the education to go along with it. Like I just wrote a protocol. It's 31 different videos that teaches people the lifestyle that needs to be present to get the results, not only get the results, but be able to sustain. So what's the point of losing all the weight if you're just going to gain it back?
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, much like any diet, anybody follows that they lose weight quickly, they're going to lose muscle mass. That's just a part of it. But if they're not, like for instance, the standard GLP-1 agonist, it's about 16% weight loss in a year. Okay, so if you're a 200-pound person, that's about 30 pounds a year, right? So 25, 30 pounds a year. Of that percentage, 35% of that is muscle if they're not eating the right amount of protein or using or building the muscle.
That's a huge amount. I had no idea it was that much.
Well, and that's just any diet. That's, you know, everybody's kind of shaming the GLP-1 agonist for it, but it's honestly any diet that you lose weight quickly. Same thing. If you're not eating enough protein and you're not building muscle, you two are going to, you know, break down.
I think that's why we've actually talked about Ozempic, and I don't think either one of us are really fans of it because the thing is most people are going to take it. They're not going to want to eat, right? And then the foods they are eating aren't going to have protein. They're not going to have if they're not going to eat like fucking steak.
So the
right?
interesting thing is they're peptides. Okay, so
Right.
and they launched in 2005. So we've had these drugs for 20 years.
Yeah, the actors are making it famous, and that's why
That's
we're talking
right.
about it, you know.
I mean, clinically, I have been using these drugs for a very long time, and as long as what I like about them is they make people good students, while I teach them what they need to do to learn the lifestyle that needs to be present and practice the lifestyle, master the lifestyle.
Before you even take it.
Well, you can't be on it if you're not going to do lifestyle management.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
that's the problem is the pharmacists and the MDs and the online stuff that are just prescribing it like crazy, but not insisting that people do the lifestyle management.
Exactly.
For my patients, it makes them very good students. It takes the edge off because truly your body is trying to fight you to get you to not lose the weight.
Right.
Okay, so for fat cell metabolism, and I teach this all in my protocol, it does take the edge off. But the way I teach people to eat is protein first, right?
Yep.
And that in itself is engaging the GLP-1 peptides in our stomach. It's the same. It's mimicking what the drug is doing to perfection. So I, behind the scenes, I'm teaching them how to do it without medication. They're maybe on it because it's taking the edge off. It's helping them, not feel hungry. Because as you lose weight, your fat cells are going to freak out and go, "Oh crap, you're starving."
Yeah, feed me.
And then it lowers your metabolism. You're burning less while you're working out, and it's creating for every 2 pounds you lose, your body creates another 100 calories in appetite to try to get you to gain the weight back. So think about that. You're not only needing less calories because your body size is less, but your appetite has just doubled.
So didn't you tell me once that it takes like a year to offset that?
1 to 6 years. I mean, you have to. So if you've taught your fat cells that this is normal, and then all of a sudden you shrink it, and you're in a cave, right? Like your body doesn't understand any different. Like like you're in a cave and you're starving because fat is protective. And you just shrunk, and it's like, okay, well, I'm freaking out, so I'm going to, 1, give you appetite and cravings so you get your butt out of the cave and start hunting, and then I'm also going to lower your metabolism so that you're not burning as many calories so that once you get to the animal you need to kill, you have the energy you need. It's very primal.
I mean, we've been around
sure.
for millions of years, so that's
Yeah.
how it was. That's how we are.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely. So what the drugs do is I feel like it takes an edge off. It helps people stay at that weight while they're, you've heard set point, but really what that is their fat cells have to adapt to, I'm not starving. It's okay. I've stayed here long enough where now this is my new normal and it's not fighting you. And so that's why I believe in the medications.
Yeah.
But it has to have education, and you have to, I believe people were put on this earth for more than gaining and losing these same pounds over and over again. Let's just do it right. And if you need to be on a medication to take the edge off, they're very safe. We've had them for 20 years, right? They're very, very safe. It's just that the problem is people are not getting the right education.
100%.
And what I teach is people, I teach people how to do it without medication, but I teach people how to do it with medication. The whole thing is you've got to be able to walk the walk after you're off.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's talk about education for a minute. If you go back to 1990s, if you look at the food pyramids, which
Oh,
we actually
God.
have right here, guys.
Yeah.
What do you think about 6 to 11, servings of rice, pasta,
Carbohydrates.
cereal, and carbohydrates, and then the protein is only 2 or 3 servings a day.
Yeah.
So what do you guys feel about that?
Thanks to the Department of Agriculture.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And our subsidized crops, government subsidized crops. I mean, the thing is sometimes I don't want to call myself a dietitian because there have been a lot of failures in our profession. A lot of
And
failures.
I would say that's the biggest failure, and that's why half of America is fat as shit. So
Yeah,
throw
I'd say
that
more than
food
half.
pyramid out the window.
And it was not only that, but thanks to the American Heart Association. And I can say that because that's really where, back in the day, when they told everybody to start eating lower fat, and by the way, they now know that the study that they went off of was absolute trash.
Yep.
Told everybody to start eating low fat. So what do all the products do? They lower the fat and they jack sugar in everything. Okay, so there's your obesity epidemic right there in a nutshell, is thanks to the American Heart Association who told everybody to stop eating fat. I encourage people to eat, 1, really high protein and very high good fat.
Good fats,
Because
yes, ma'am.
fat is what lowers your blood sugar, which lowers insulin, which means you're not going to be storing fat, right? You're going to be burning if we keep our insulin's down, and you feel fuller, faster for longer. It's it's the same as the GLP-1 agonist. It's satiating. That's exactly what those drugs are doing. Yet everybody, yes, we have demonized carbs. And to a point, we have to because people aren't moving.
Yeah.
Because remember, we needed those carbs to move.
To move. Yeah.
Remember when Michael Phelps came out with his training and how much he was eating?
Yeah, it was a lot.
He was eating that.
Yeah.
Basically.
I'm sure he
eating
was.
a full pizza, but he was also burning.
I mean, how long was he in the pool for?
Yeah,
10
it
hours
was,
a day?
yeah, exactly. So
I mean, that's
you
why
need
we
them carbs.
really
Right.
don't need carbs is because people are not moving.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And and this is something that we see a lot in bodybuilding, right? How is it that I can grow my clients into the show off a low calorie diet? It's not the goddamn drugs, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Like you might want to think it's all the drugs. It's fucking not. It's because we're breaking up the protein and we're giving you, protein every 2.5 hours. So that way your body absorbs it all. And I think like carbohydrates are one of those things, like it dictates fat loss a lot. When I'm looking at, of course you need it to grow muscle. We all know that. But at the same time, I am a huge fan of high protein diets, low carbohydrates, especially into a bodybuilding prep. And you have to have fats. Like you don't understand how many times I break down these coaches' plans and they have zero fat. If you have a coach like that, run for the fucking hills because they have no idea what they're doing. Your brain
Well, they
functions.
don't. I mean,
off fat.
everybody typically is getting set up for failure with that. And the other thing, too, is let's just call a spade a spade. The reasons this is all working is because it's lower in calorie, right? Like we are compounding all of these things that these drugs are doing to help people eat lower calorie.
Yep.
You can't lose fat unless there's a deficit of calories. If
Exactly.
you're not eating under what your body needs to maintain its current weight, you may be burning fat, but unless you're in a calorie deficit, you're not losing fat.
Yeah.
It'll just recycle and you'll deposit it again. So, I mean, I think everybody has to figure it out. And I think individualizing really helps. I would say that that's probably what I'm best at is taking somebody. And if this is how they're used to living, then helping them figure out how we tweak. People can't feel deprived. We know people will only do things for a finite amount of time. Behavior modification, behavior change is a huge part. There are a very small percentage of people who are motivated like you two are, and I would say like we are, So there's a lot of tricks to the trade, right? Because people mentally aren't there. But you have to, the behavior modification part of it, unless you're addressing somebody's behavior, if they feel like they need that carb and if we don't figure out how to work that in and they feel deprived, and I hear what you're saying, but you have to understand your mentality, like the way, what I do in my practice is I determine somebody's motivation to change.
Yeah.
That's one of the first things I do. Because if they're not a 10, which I'm a 10 every day, you're a 10 every day, you two are a 10 every day.
I ate McDonald's, girl. Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
No, but I'm just
I'm at the
saying,
gas station.
but you are not obese.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm about it,
And
for
you are motivated. Everybody has a motivation for something. So what is your motivation? If you really want to lose this weight, if you're a 10, as out of 10 on wanting to lose, you will.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks that you can't, and I'm not really sure who told everybody you can't do what you put your mind to.
Yeah. Well, I think, those who say they can and those who say they can't are both usually right. So it's all about your mind. It's what you tell your mind. And, whenever I took a client on, I stopped babying people. That's the number one thing. I don't baby fucking nobody no more. Like if I could diet for a fucking bodybuilding show, you could diet to save your goddamn life, right? And I do a lot of lifestyle coaching. Dustin does a lot of lifestyle coaching. That's primarily your business.
Yeah.
In my experience, like people are gonna do it or they're gonna puss out and they're fucking not. And at the end of the day, like I had this one client, 400 pounds, not even exaggerating, guys. 400 pounds, you lose weight quick. I lost 35 pounds in 1 week. A lot of water, right? And I had him eating more food than he ever has his entire life. Goes to his fucking doctor. His doctor's like, oh, well, because he's probably bitching. I'm like, oh, I want Twinkies. I want all this shit. Doctor's like, oh, well, you don't need it. That diet's trash. It's a horrible diet. Like, take all these drugs.
Yeah.
I'm like, and so he comes to me, man, like my doctor says like this diet doesn't go for me. We lost 35 fucking pounds. Are you retarded? So I gave up. And right after that, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to deal with this no more. Like, it's either you want to save your life or you don't. So that's my mindset.
The problem is, and again, this is not a medical doctor bashing session because we need them. Okay? We need them to sew muscle back onto bone and diagnose cancer.
100%.
But at the same time, what do they get? one class in nutrition through medical school or something
Yep.
like that.
Oh,
It's
and they
pitiful.
will tell you that,
Yeah.
you know, like they will tell you that they don't. And I mean, I think to your point, in my profession, I have to be patient with that.
You do.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so then that's kind of where you're trying to work on behavior change as far as, you know, if somebody's pre-contemplating, then I've got to get them to from pre
Right.
to contemplating.
So how do you do it then? Because, you know, in my experience, it's, again, like they're going to do it or they're not. So I feel like in my experience, the more I baby someone and say like, okay, this is, yeah, you can get away with this. You can get away with, oh, I know you're just struggling. Oh, it's okay, honey. Like, it's fine. No, fuck that. Like in my experience, you have to be hard on them. So how do you do it? What are your tactics?
Well, there's a difference between ready to change and motivation to change. There's a big difference in that. So I have to determine where they are on both those scales. And then it's my job. Like if let's say you came to me and I was trying to gauge your motivation and you told me you were feeling about a 6 on that scale. 0, not at all, 10, very. Okay, you're a 6. Wow, you know, you didn't tell me 0. What motivates you? Like what why are you here?
Yeah.
You know, what motivates you to be here today? The 6 is a pretty high number. And to you and I, it's not, but to them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So then I find out what their motivation is. And through this, I'm trying to get to know them. I'm listening to what
digging.
they're saying. And then I'll say, you know, it's interesting. You didn't tell me you're not a 10. Like what's keeping you from being a 10? Figuring out their obstacles.
Yeah.
Like what is it that's holding you back? Well, I failed before or whatever it, you know, I've tried every diet, nothing has ever worked. Okay, so education is, you know, whatever. But then I call the spade, and there's a lot of tears. I mean, there's always a lot of tears typically. Because what I've heard is you will do whatever it takes for your grandkid. Would you ever think of giving your grandchild, like if you told your grandchild you were going to be there to take them somewhere, would you show up 60% of the time? No.
Of course not.
Wouldn't ever think about it. Why do you sell yourself short then?
Yep.
Because you did that, you walked the walk, you did whatever it took to show up on time every time you said for that. Why aren't you showing up for yourself?
Exactly.
And so then it's me helping them just come
Find
to
that motivation.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm trained to do that. And so I kind of have to be a little bit more patient with that. And really it is my goal to take them from a 6 to a 10.
Yeah.
And they've got to stay a 10. And or else what good does it do to lose all that weight if you can't sustain it?
Exactly.
And so I'm really big on sustainability. We're not going to change anything you don't foresee yourself doing for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a new way of living.
Yeah, so that's pretty much me and you are on the same exact page. I'm just
Yeah.
giving you some shit. You know what I'm saying?
No, no.
Trust me, we're on the same page.
But
because,
you can be in that position,
Yeah.
whereas, you know, being a dietitian, we have a governing, we
Yep.
have a scope of practice, we have code of ethics, all of that stuff that we have to adhere to.
Yeah.
So I can't really,
Yeah,
even
you-
though sometimes I want to say that, I
Right,
really can't.
And the funny thing is, like, I would say I baby a lot more people than Dustin does. Like,
Yeah, absolutely don't
Dustin
baby
is
anybody.
even more hardcore than me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I get it. And like we've talked about this before. Like, you have to, exactly what you said, you have to find that why. You know,
Yeah.
inside, dude, you have to find that why. Like, why am I dieting? Like,
Yeah.
is it because you actually hit it perfectly? Like, if you're going to show up for your kids 100% of the time, you're not showing up for yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to start showing up for yourself. So exactly. So you just hit it pretty much spot on, Dustin.
You know what's
what do you?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
They're good.
No. Finish up.
No, I'll say because I wanted Dustin to rant a little bit on how he treats his clients, because don't get me wrong, like Dustin is a little more hardcore than me, so I want to hear his take on it.
I mean, it really depends on the person, right? And so you can only baby them for so much, like you're saying, right?
Exactly.
So it's like if what you're saying is, boom, you're a 10 at this point, and then a few weeks down the line, now you're kind of dialing it back, and now you're a 6. It's like, okay, why? What happened in that
Yeah.
point? And it's hard for me. I mean, I try to be as patient as I can, but then I really want to get to the point.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why? What is it? Tell me right now. Let's be 100% honest. And
Yeah.
if they can't be honest with me, I mean, I got to get on them a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I try to figure out that why and try to reinstill that why and really try to, again, get them back to that 10. And a lot of times it's not a easy path to take.
No.
And so,
There's a lot.
yeah.
There's a lot that people, have in what I call their closet. And we have got to start cleaning out the closet to get them to the point where they stop making excuses for change. I've heard it all. And 30 plus years of
Yep.
counseling patients, I have heard it all. But when it comes down to it, what I try to look at them and say is, I'm not sure whoever told you you can't do anything you put your mind to. I'm not sure whoever told you that there has to be excuses or that any of this is holding you back. If you want to lose this weight, guess what?
It's gone.
Walk the walk every day, and you got it. That's it.
I think a lot of people too, this is kind of, again, I'm not in the nutrition world, but I see this whenever I talk about nutrition with patients, which is a little bit, but usually I defer to Shannon. But
I get a lot of texts.
yeah.
I believe you. Trust me, me and you both.
A lot of people are like, well, I just don't want to give up everything I love. And I'm like, well, we don't just eat spinach and
Cardboard.
and boil chicken. You know what I mean? Like we went and had some fun on Saturday, and
Some of us had more fun than others.
I killed a meat lover's pizza on Saturday night,
there you
like
go.
at 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
All right, but I don't feel guilty about it because I trained hard that day and I trained hard the next day, and that was kind of a cheat day. So I always say to people, if you love chocolate cake, eat some chocolate cake.
Yeah.
Just don't eat it every day. Like one of my best friends back in Kansas, Chad is his name. He's one of the smartest trainers I've met. He said to me years ago, he goes, I tell a lot of my clients, like, if you have 27 to 30 meals a week, if it's, 3-4 a day or whatever, and you get in that ballpark of 30, he goes, if you have 2 bad meals, that's a pretty damn good ratio.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you've got decent muscle mass on you, it's not going to affect you. It's going to you're going to burn through it like that. So I don't think people understand. I think
they equate it to deprivation.
yeah.
They feel like they're going to have to give up everything they love doing.
That's what I was going to say. That was my segue. Was I think they look at people like us and go, well, they never have any fun. They just eat egg whites and boiled chicken and spinach every day, and
And then I
that's
realized
it.
I'm at McDonald's like twice a week.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
right.
I don't have time to
just,
spend that much time in the gym.
Yeah.
You know what I think it is? I think the biggest problem is people go from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
And they
It's
don't
not baby
realize
steps.
that, guys, it's like, you can go 10% to 20% to 30%. Just start by going on a walk. Just go on a walk every day, 5 days a week, right? Start with that. You don't even start with a diet. Just start moving.
Yeah.
The problem is like, again, I think our career's a lot different because we go 0 to 100, right?
Yeah.
And we try to force that on people because we want big changes. But majority, especially lifestyle coaches, the lifestyle that I do coach, it's not 0 to 100, right? It's some people maybe, yes, but you have to start slow and progressively over. A lot of people that do, okay, I want 7 days of cardio and 7 days of training and 5 meals of chicken and broccoli. Guys, they're not going to be able to do it. And you're not going to be able to do it.
Yeah.
You're going to give
Well,
up.
they will do it for a finite amount of
2
time.
weeks.
Yeah.
For 2 weeks.
And
That's the
then
sweet
they're
spot.
There is
Then they're done.
no way anybody's going to sustain that type of behavior.
Exactly.
And that's where I'm kind of what I call the sustainability police, is if I see my all or none people are my nightmares.
Yeah.
Because it's like they're on and, we're doing great. And then I'm like, okay, so when are we off? Because,
when is this stopping?
Yeah. So I always have to say, no, like, you told me that one of the most important things that you love ice cream. You're not going to give up ice cream for 3 months. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that that's going to happen. Can I teach you a healthier way to do it? Absolutely. Can I, moderation, all of the things. But it's funny, the all or none people, it's like they show up to you and they're on, and then all of a sudden they're off.
They ghost
They're
you
a
for like 2
nightmare.
weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
And they go off the bender. They lost 20 pounds when they gained back 50. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, we're back to square one, buddy. So
And that is that fat cell metabolism. That is that, it's like all of a sudden their body's freaking out and they're getting double the appetite for the amount of calories they're burning.
Yeah.
Do you remember when I was telling you about how Joe Rogan a couple years ago, I was listening to one of his podcasts and he said something about mouth pleasure. He goes, I don't understand how for 30 seconds of mouth pleasure and 2 hours of guilt, like why the 2 hours of guilt.
What kind of podcast is this?
Well, no, he was just, no, he was talking about,
this one's there. Okay, now we're starting to see what's going on here, where her head's at.
can we get a timeout?
Yeah, time break.
But he was talking about cheating, basically. Like, I really want that chocolate croissant or whatever your vice is. And it's like, okay, so now you ate it, and great, you had some mouth pleasure for 2 minutes, but now you feel like shit because it was high in high fructose corn syrup or whatever else. And it's like, where's...
Well, I think people have forgotten that, truly, they're using food for entertainment. They're using food for makes me feel better. I feel bad. It makes me feel, the whole dopamine, all of that. food has become so much more than just nourishing and taking care of ourselves.
And I also think people truly don't know what it's like to feel good.
Yeah, no.
Like
No,
like
they
ask
don't.
her, like I am such a baby when I don't feel good because I feel good all the time.
Yeah.
I've got my diet dialed in, I've got my supplements dialed in. I never crash. I don't have the postprandial, post-lunch crash.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'm with patients all day, I'm good. I'm good. Now, when we eat dinner and, I finish up charts or whatever, and I finally sit on the couch for us to hang out or whatever, good luck getting me off the couch. Yeah, exactly. So, but
but
I'm
that's
going
just
for,
it. Is once you sit down, because you never sit
Yeah,
down,
exactly.
you realize
Same.
how tired you are.
But I don't understand, like when people talk about, oh, my motivation's so low. And I have those days where I don't want to go to the gym, but
Oh, you push through.
I push through it.
You know what
And-
it is? It's discipline.
Yeah.
Motivation's going to come and go, guys. Discipline is what remains at the end of the day. Like when I was 14 years old, I always told myself I would never take more than 2 consecutive days off from the gym. I'm 31 now. I've never, since I was 14 years old, taken more than 2 consecutive days off from the gym. And I travel the fucking country, man. Like going on these shows, and I'm gone for 4, 5, 6 days. I find ways to get to the gym.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I have never, since I was 14 years old, missed that.
That's
So
great.
real quick, I want to go on the table. I want you to give somebody something really strong. Give them advice to get started, because there's a lot of people that need help out there and they don't know where to get started. Dustin, you go first.
Lifestyle client. Well, the first thing is, like you're saying, get moving. I mean, you got to start with baby steps. Like you can continue to eat what you're eating right now, but just get more active. Just try to go on a walk. Like you're saying, just that simple little tactic of getting more movement into your daily routine is going to make some changes. From there, if you can start to try to clean up your eating, it's going to be a little bit easier for you. But again, just starting with a little bit of movement will help out a lot.
Rob.
So I learned this from her, and hopefully I don't steal your answer here, but don't try to do too much at the beginning.
Yep.
I always tell everybody, if you hate doing a certain type of exercise, don't do it. Because now you're like, if you hate getting on the treadmill, but you don't mind walking outside, walk outside.
Yeah.
All right. Don't go to the gym hating what you know you have to do. Because if it's hard enough to get into the gym and then you hate what you're getting ready to do, you're never going to do it. You're fighting against inertia already. And I always say, pick something that is fun. Okay. I'm kind of a dork. Like I love going to the gym and lifting weights because it's fun for me, because it's experimental. Because it's like I'm like the little chemistry dork, like mixing potions. Like I'm always trying to figure out ways to, we got a bad back over here. How can I move this a little bit better to figure out it's fun for me? So if it's fun to go play pickleball, go play pickleball. Or if it's fun to play catch with your kids, just move a little bit more than you're moving right now. That's the best place to start.
Okay.
You guys
Shannon.
both stole my answer. Thanks.
Well, we got to get another one.
Well, I think kind of what I try to work with everybody on first is there's a lot that goes before you even start thinking about change. But if you can find a way to do what I call hack stacking, meaning you get a little bit overwhelmed. I feel like a lot of people thinking about, oh my gosh, now all of a sudden I've got to have this cute little outfit on to go to the gym for an hour a day. And,
I think about that for sure.
You know,
Look in the mirror.
you know what I mean? Like then they're starting to think, oh God, I've got to go to the store and I got to wipe out all my cabinet. You know what I mean? Like it's overwhelming.
Right.
So what I try to tell everybody to do clearly is move more. Like I try to teach them how to incorporate movement into their day, so by the end of the day they've gotten that 8,000 to 10,000 steps. In other words, I know we've heard it 100 times, but park further away and blah, blah, blah. I mean, you do that 365 days a year, 24/7, that is going to add up. 10 jumping jacks a day. Imagine if we just did 10 jumping jacks a day for the next 365 days. I mean, that's pretty. It's
really good.
It's a lot of jumping
significant.
jacks.
Absolutely.
So it's the small little hacks, like if you think, okay, well, there are things that I do every day. The coffee, maybe they get coffee, something's at the coffee. Okay, have some 3-pound weights. I don't even know. Do some bicep curls or something with the weights that are at the coffee machine. Maybe, you go to the bathroom, you brush your teeth, all of the little things, like have your environment set up where it keys you to just change your patterns to where you're doing more versus less or staying the same.
Bruce Lee used to do that. That he would leave weights around his house, and when he would go from his office to the kitchen, he'd walk by a set of 50-pound dumbbells, and he would do like 50 clean and press or push-ups or something. And it's just, I had a professor, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking like people who sit at a desk all day. Okay, so do 10 chair squats before you go to the potty.
Yeah.
And don't go to the potty right by your office. Go to the one, two
farthest
floors
one.
up and take the stairs.
Yeah.
It's just all about stacking little things that at the end of the day have added up to be actually a pretty big change.
Yeah.
And then they start to feel better. Then I feel like their buy-in is there when they start to feel better.
And there's actually some data that shows that you can get some positive bodybuilding effects by getting more volume in, basically by doing, okay, let's say you program in, somebody's got to do 100 push-ups before they leave the gym. If somebody, and they can only do 10 at a time because they're so gassed. If you took that same 100 push-ups and had them do 10 1 hour, 10 another hour, 10 another hour, it's going to equal the same amount of work. Now, you may not get the same hypertrophy benefit because you're not working time under tension and tendon length and all that, but it's the same amount of volume. It's the same amount of work.
At this point, we'll take anything.
At this-
I think
yeah.
that's just it, right?
Yeah.
Like you have to get everybody away from this all or nothing. Like I always tell everybody A, B, and C. Have an idea of what an A day looks like, but then have a B and a C day, so that give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
Maybe you started and it was going to be, you meant for it to be an A day. Life threw you a curveball and you ended up with a C, but I guarantee you there's not one person who cannot make time for 10 jumping jacks a day.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
You know, and I think
that's
that
what a C day is.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what, I know the kids are sick. I know this, whatever. What can you to tell me that you can do no matter what? Go up and down the stairs 10 times. How long is that going to take you?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is just getting started, and
Yeah.
you know, what are you going to do in 10 years when, 20 pounds might not look like a lot. What are you going to do when it's fucking 40 pounds or 50 pounds? Now you have heart problems. Now you have lung problems. You can't breathe. Now you're in a fucking wheelchair.
Yeah.
Now's the time to fucking get started. I don't know why people are waiting. Like you have one fucking life. You have one body. Look at all of us around this table. We all take great care of ourselves, you know? And the whining needs to fucking stop. The bitching and the complaining about, oh, my back, or oh, like I'm too fat, or oh, I can't see my ass. You do something about it. Stop being a fucking baby. Get off your ass.
I'm with you.
And get started.
100%.
Like it's not really hard. And what are you gonna do? You're gonna be dead someday. And you could last another 20 fucking years, man. You could probably live another 10, 20 years if you just start today. And a lot of people are gonna see this, man. Get your ass off the damn couch.
Here's something to think of. Weight maintenance, just think. If every single person just worked on maintaining the current weight that they're on and not gaining, think what that would do to disease
100%.
and you know what I mean? Like, so a lot of times people may be overwhelmed with losing. Just try not to gain.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like just try to put together enough behaviors where you are staying the same weight.
Exactly.
And then start working on it.
Yeah. I think
Really
the
good.
expectation is people think they're going to get old. I'm just going to be old. I'm supposed to be broken anyways. Fuck that. You know, I mean, there's so many amazing, like, look at Mark Sisson. I mean, you guys know who that is? He started the Primal Kitchen brand. You've probably seen him before. He's all over the internet. He started that Paluva shoes company, which is, they're one of my sponsors, but he's 71. The guy looks amazing. He slack lines and he subsurfs and he's amazing. Like, remember that video I sent you of that like 87-year-old who ran like a 14-second 100?
That's crazy.
I mean, I know people in their 50s who couldn't run a 4-second 100.
just-
I mean, it's the want to do it is the thing. And I think if people understood how good they could feel, they would be more apt. I think they just think, I'm supposed to feel like
I
shit.
always tell everybody, give me 30 days. You know what I mean? Give me 30 days, clean up how they're eating, get them moving more so that they have perspective. One of my favorite things to do is that if people have worked with me and they're feeling so much better, because I really do believe in eating real food and not all this processed crap, and people really do feel better. Then they say, oh, I'm going on a cruise. And I'm like, oh, good. Because you are going to feel what it feels like to feel like crap for 7 days. And then they can't wait to get back because they have that perspective.
Exactly.
I mean, we see this all the time. You know, bodybuilders do shows and they get done and they go out that night with their friends and they go out the next day. By Monday, bro, they want chicken and rice.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
promise you, they're done. They're feeling like
Worry about
absolute fucking trash.
100%.
But, real quick, I want to go around the table because it's been an amazing podcast.
We already went around the table a few times.
We can
gotta
talk. You know, we can talk forever about this. You know what I'm saying?
No more around the table.
Really quick, last of the remarks, really 5 seconds. What do you got, man?
Get off your ass.
Boom.
There you go.
Oh God, I'm not good at this. See those things I did. I'm not good at this. Give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
Respect your body. Use food for nourishment. Think about what you're putting in your body. That was more than 5 seconds. But if people would just stop and say, what is my body getting anything out of this that's good, or am I damaging my health? I think if people would just stop and think about what they're actually doing, I think they would make different choices.
100%.
So basically, yes. Bottom line is get active, get the fuck off of the couch, and do something about your life. Take control of it, all right? And move forward. Leave all that bullshit behind you and go this way, right? If you gotta attach your toothbrush to a fucking dumbbell, okay? That's what you gotta do. Put your remote controller, your phone on a dumbbell, bring it to your ear, all that kind of jazz, right? We just get active and start burning calories. We got Dr. Rob here and his amazing wife, Shannon. I appreciate you guys coming on to our show. You got anything to add?
That's it, man. We're good.
Boom, that's it. Episode 12.
Let's go,
okay?
baby.
Give us a subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. I know there's 60% of you out there that watch these videos and haven't subscribed yet, so hit that button, all right? Give us a like as well, comment, and then hit that bell notification so you know when we're posting more
See
of
you
these
guys next
videos.
time.
Let's go.
Let's go.
Peace.
Perfect.